Well, good morning and welcome to Brekkie with the Guy Who Sews. Today is Saturday, April 27th. I got it right 2 weeks in a row. How about that? And I have brought along my good friend Stephen from Bland Designs and the
We
Idiot
have a plan
Quilter.
that's connecting Ontario.
Sorry, that's
Building new
me.
highways like the Brekkie.
Okay, it's fine. We're just finding out what the traffic is in Ontario. So if you need to know what that is, you're about to find out. But anyway, thank you so much for everybody that's joined in. Stephen's been on the channel many times before, but we're talking about it beforehand. I don't think we've had him on since Canada Day, which is July 1st. So it's been many, many times between drinks of coffee. So for anyone who hasn't met Stephen, I'm going to let him introduce himself, tell him a bit more about himself and his channel.
Well, if you don't know who I am, what rock are you living under? So I'm everywhere. I am the Idiot Quilter. I'm Stephen. And yeah, what can I tell you? Well, the Idiot Quilter channel is what it is. It's the Idiot Quilter. Why is it the Idiot Quilter? Because I'm an idiot. I like to show you my mistakes all the time. That's how it started off. And it's grown since I started it. Actually, I've been on YouTube for over 12 years, but not as the Idiot Quilter. I was on here first as Bland Designs because I wasn't a quilter. I was a paper crafter and a scrapbooker and art journalist and that kind of thing. And that's what I did for a long time. And when I retired 12 years ago from teaching, I decided I would dabble in the world of YouTube and make videos about my crafting. And it grew and it grew. And then I discovered quilting and never looked back. Sort of don't do the paper crafting anymore. And so then I started the Idiot Quilter. And then Walter came on board when we started Stephen and Walter Live. Walter's my husband, if you're not aware of that. And those are on Sunday afternoons at 4 o'clock, where it's kind of a free-for-all. We usually have a topic. We never get to it. We go with whatever the flow is. And
sounds like this one.
yeah, just go. It's just stream of consciousness kind of a thing, which
just let it go where it goes.
Sometimes gets me into trouble because I really don't have a good filter. Walter's my filter. People think it's hilarious. He'll roll his eyes when I say stuff. He'll jab me or whatever, and I go, what? Like, leave me alone, kind of a thing. And on Fridays, we often post, we always post a video called So Chatty, where we kind of look at various things about the sewing community, the quilting community, and talk about what we've discovered about this, that, or the other thing. Lately, we just finished, before we went off to Australia, a whole series on machine embroidery, because we're both machine embroiderists as well. We both have our own machines. Walter sews as well. He's more of a garment maker, although he is starting to get a little bit more into making quilts.
Oh, really? That's neat.
Yep, he's got one that I have to show him how to put it on the long arm and what to do with it. And that's going to be a series, actually. Lucy Meets Walter, I'm going to call it. Lucy's the name of my long arm.
Really? I've got a friend of mine I work with. She bought a long arm last year and she called hers Lucy as well. And I think there's one or two other people I've come across that call their long arm Lucy. So it seems to be a really common name.
They're APQS machines, and there's one of the models is called Lucy. They name them all after women. There's Lily, Lucy. They used to have a Larry and they used to have a George.
Right.
And that. So the one that, if you hear somebody calling their long arm Lucy, it's because that's the name that actually comes with. It's right on the machine. It's
okay.
So that's why
Lucy. This one is a Gamble machine, so I don't think it's because of that.
No.
Yeah, but yeah, that'd be an interesting question for anyone who has a long arm or a machine in general. Do you have a name for your machine? That would be I'd love to hear in the comments what you name your machine, especially if it's a long arm. I have named my machine, the little brother machine behind me. I called it Brian after my own brother, Brian. I have not named the Benina yet, so we will get to that. But let's say good morning to everybody, or good evening, because we do have some folks tuning in from Australia as well, before I get too far down the road and distracted, and I'll forget everybody, and then I'll feel terrible about that. So let's see. My friend Dragonflies from Donald was here like 6:30 this morning. Let's see who else is here. Jeanette Vinton is here from Riddle, Oregon, which I think is amazing that people tune in from the West Coast alive all the time. So Beverly Aikens is here with us, and Nancy is here. She says, "Good morning, everybody." And let's see who else is here. Pam is here. Good evening to you. She's one of our friends from Brisbane, Australia. Gloria Carlson is from King Williams, Virginia. Let's see, scroll down, scroll down. Everyone's chatting, which is really, really nice. Okay, Rose Garland Creations, Catherine. Hi, everyone, on this awesome autumn night. So she's definitely in the Southern Hemisphere. Hope everyone is well. And Stephen, you are getting better. Yeah, because Stephen has not been feeling well. And we'll talk about that in just a few moments, because I didn't hear about that till this morning myself. Beverly Aikens, Annette Walker says she's bummed she has to miss this. She's got to set up prom venue with my prom committee. And that was funny because yesterday I presented my carnival puzzle mystery quilt, and it was right around the time Lorenzo was getting ready for his prom, and I actually got missed twice because I had to run outside and do stuff. So I can definitely relate to that. You go watch that video and see how funny it was. Laurie Colgan says g'day, and let's see, Charlotte is here with us. Donnell, good morning. Chloe Morgan is here with us. Charlotte, Jacqueline, Sweet Granny, Joyce is here with us as well. Nellie Franco, Patricia Priest. And if I miss someone, let me know. I apologize. I try and catch everyone, but it's almost impossible. Andrea is here with us as well. Kathy Klein, Teresa. I may be repeating people as well. Mona did what? Bill is here with us. I got to meet him at QuiltCon as well. Tammy is actually up at 6 a.m. where she is, and she's up and saying hi. She can't stay, but she'll be live at 11 p.m. Sorry, 11 a.m. As well. Okay, so if I miss someone, just tag me. I apologize. It's not deliberate, I promise you. Let's see. Okay, so Jeanette says her long arm is Alejandro. I hope I pronounced that right, because my Spanish is horrible. My accent butchers that language, unfortunately. So let's see. Stephen, do you want to tell us why you're sick? Like, is that something you're comfortable sharing with everybody?
Oh yeah, sure. It's not a problem. You can't catch it through the screen, so everybody's safe with that. Yep. I have COVID. Yep. I got off the plane from Australia, and the next day I started to feel a little weird. And by the end of that day, I was hacking up a lung and everything like that. So we have some test things here in the house. So I took a COVID test, and oh yeah, that little dot on that thing went really deep in color. I had major COVID. So then what do you do? There is an antiviral here I live in Ontario, Canada, outside of Toronto, and there is an antiviral drug available that as soon as you've detected that you have COVID, you're supposed to get your hands on it. Well, that was the tricky part, getting our hands on the antiviral drug. Walter, bless his heart, he went immediately onto the internet, and he contacted our local pharmacy that we usually deal with, and they said, yeah, you can get it. We don't have it. Oh, thank you. He phoned at least 10 other pharmacies in the area before he found one that actually had it. And that happened to be the pharmacy in the local hospital, which isn't that far from us.
Wow.
But they didn't want to give it to me unless our home pharmacist gave me a prescription. So Walter was on the phone. He was on the phone for a good 2.5 hours to get all of this arranged and whatnot. So short version of the story is we got it. I have it in me. I took my last dose of this. It's 6 pills a day, 3 in the morning, 3 in the evening. It's got all kinds of side effects to it. They just went down a list of everything, like you're going to wake up one morning with 2 heads from it. The worst part
I wouldn't have taken it then.
Yeah, you can't be on certain medications at the same time with it. It'll wreak havoc on your blood pressure. I'm already on blood pressure pills. I don't have severe high blood pressure, but I have a little bit. Well, I have never seen readings. I take my readings every day. I had never seen readings like this for blood pressure. I expected them to be really high. They were like, I think I'm dead. They were low, like 70 over 88 or something like that. It was ridiculous numbers. Because I monitor every morning. I have a monitor for it. But anyways, oh, and you're going to taste like you're sucking on a lead pipe, as I told
Yeah,
you.
that's the one you told me about, and I was like, good gravy, that doesn't sound good.
Yep, I haven't drank any coffee for the last 5 days since I've been on it because I tried and oh, just horrible taste. But it seems to be I took my last dose today and I'm a heck of a lot better than I was this time at the first of the week. So I think it's working. But yeah, not a fun thing to have. And I blame
No,
it on the flight. So, but anyways, yeah, so that's what I've been doing since I got home from Australia. So I have not done any real sewing since I got home. I have a thing on the embroidery machine right now, just a simple little, I'm making some mug rugs for Stephanie Stitch's retreat in December in Georgia because I'm going again. I went last year. We went last year. Had such a great time that we're going again this year. And so I like to give people some things when I'm there. So making them idiot quilter mug rugs on the
very
embroidery
nice.
machine.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. And your
Kind of
mate
hot.
Shannon just popped in the chat as well. I'm not sure where Russ is. I think he was gonna try try and pop in because I know he has a busy day ahead of him. I think he has his live at 11 and then has something at his local quilt shop, is what he was telling me yesterday as well. So let's see who else popped in. I saw Inez pop in this morning as well, Brenda as well, and then good morning, Ginger. It's good to see you. So you're working on the embroidery thing and get to talk to us. I also brought Stephen on this morning so he could tell us a bit more about his trip to Australia because him and Walter went down to Australia for about a month, which sounds like a long time, but that is a big country, and a month doesn't even really scratch the surface, as Stephen will probably tell you in about 5 minutes. And the part I really thought was fun is he didn't even realize it till afterwards, but he actually got to spend some time in my hometown. So we figure we'll talk a bit about that. And then I am actually trying some free motion quilting with everybody along for the ride. So I'm just having some fun with some rulers. I'm doing the one of the cotton cuts gnomes just because it's something small that I can hang up. And if it doesn't turn out 100% correct, it doesn't really matter because you're not going to get better unless you practice, right?
That's what they say. I have found that no, I'll just throw it on Lucy and use the computer.
Oh, okay. Well, that works too. Well, I don't have that option, so
Well, more
I'm just
power to you because you're able to do that. See, I just nope, I'm a computerized guy. If there's a toy, an electronic toy that can help you with your sewing, I'm all in for it. I don't care if people think it's cheating. I don't. I just feel it's modern 21st century quilting is what I call it. Yeah, using the tools.
With that, I mean, the first time I saw it, I saw this machine just go into town at a quilt show, and I'm like, I kind of thought it was a little bit like, kind of like cheating. But at the end of the day, it's your hobby. You do it however you want. I see it from a business point. Like if you're a long arm or a business, you can load them, do that while you're, doing binding or you're making your own quilts and that sort of thing there. Does it really matter? Like, I don't think so. I mean, if you are happy doing the computer, and yeah, you might be someone that likes to piece and doesn't really like the quilting part. And I prefer to piece myself. If I had the time, the resources, and the money where I could just throw it on a long arm and just let it do it for me, and I didn't really, I wasn't super concerned about then yeah, I don't see a problem with it. And, and that sort of thing there. So yeah, I really don't think it's cheating. Like again, it's a craft. Yeah, you do what works for you.
Yeah, you do what
How I
you
see.
like, what makes you happy. If
Yeah,
some people really love the whole business of the free motion and doing all of that, and that's fine. I just
yeah,
found I didn't like it. I found it too frustrating for me. So,
yeah,
but like I said, I love using technology with it. So, I am kind of one of those people. I like to piece. I am not as fond of the quilting part of it, even with a long arm. I'm still not as fond of that. In fact, that's why I have 3 quilts sitting on Lucy, waiting to be quilted that I haven't got to yet. I have to get myself in the mood because, like you said, with a long arm, it's not quite just put it on and let it go. There's stuff you have to do, and
yeah.
it's easier than like it makes basting a heck of a lot easier. I can tell you that with a long arm. That's worth the money for a long arm alone, as far as I'm concerned. You know, crawling around on the floor, no pinning, no spray basting, none of that stuff, trying to get all the wrinkles out. I mean, you throw it on the long arm, you stretch it across those bars, it's good to go. But that does take a little bit of time to set up. So, you know, and that's what always puts me off about the long arm. You go, oh, I got to get it all set up. Once it's set up and
Yeah.
Lucy the way she goes, then I'm happy with it. But yeah,
Yeah, I simply don't have the room for a long arm. Like it's just not, or the money, either one. But if you don't have the resources for a long arm and you don't like rolling around on the floor pin basting, because I hate that too.
Yep.
The best thing I've found is I went out and bought a fold-up 6-foot table and I pin based on that. And it has made the world of difference. I think I may have paid 50 or 55 US dollars on it. It works beautifully. I pin basted a queen size t-shirt quilt last week. I mean, it might have taken me an hour and a half, but I was not on the floor. Like I'm not super old, but it kills my knees. So
yeah,
yeah,
Well,
if you don't have that resource, go buy yourself a table and just set it up, put it on there. You'll thank me later on.
that's what I used to do. Because the problem with me, when you're my age, you can get down on the floor. You may not get back up. So, but yeah, so it was for me, it was worth the investment. Yep, they're very expensive. And luckily I did have a spot where I could put it. That's my next project anyways. I have to redo the whole room that Lucy's in because it's getting a little bit stacked high with things. I need to do a purging and redesign shelving and things like that. So there's always something
Right.
in the world of quilting, and it doesn't necessarily always involve just doing a quilt.
No, not at all.
Storage is big. And
Okay, so we have a question. I've got a couple of questions that I need to answer real quick. The first one's from Dragonflies by Donna. She says, "Does my machine have a speed selector, or are you able to press the foot and go?" This one does have what they call the Benina speed regulator. I think that's where it's supposed to do this, keep it an even stitch. However, it comes with its own foot, and it's not a ruler foot. It's not high enough for it. So I'm not using that at the present moment. This was actually the first model, I think, that came out like 20 years ago that had that, from my understanding. And if I'm wrong, someone can correct me, of course. So yeah, I'm just going slowly. And I think it's good for me to learn. Yeah, it's great having that technology, as Stephen said, but I think it's also good for me to learn how to do it manually. So that way, if I can't use that foot, like I really shouldn't with the rulers, I have done it. Don't tell anybody. But that way I can kind of do it myself as well. And I can see a lot of, imperfections here, but I'm not going to learn unless I try it out. So, someone else said that, well, Sheila, she says, "I have the same machine. Please share any tips you have for free motion quilting on it." My tip is just do it. You're not going to learn by sitting there getting afraid of it, which is something I've struggled with for a number of years. Just get a small project like a mug rug or a placemat or something small and just have some fun with it, or buy some cotton cuts. These gnomes are great because it's like the thing I like about this gnome is it has all the different sections. So I can do one design for the beard, another design for the jacket, and that sort of thing there. So I can try different techniques in one project. So I think that'd be my advice for everybody. So let's see. And Nez says she doesn't have a wide throat machine, but she loves free motion and has done quite a lot. Yeah, you can make it work as well. Rose Catherine says, "I miss Aussie." I do. I miss the food more than anything else. And Stephen will tell us a bit more about the food that he enjoyed while he's down there. But yeah, that's probably, I mean, I've been here 22 years, so it's kind of like the US is my second home. But yeah, the thing I think I would miss the most would be the food, because it is a little different to what you normally find here in the US.
And it's served a little bit differently too. Like the first time that this is our fourth trip to Australia, so we knew how this worked. But the very first time we went, we sat down at a table in a place and looking around, and there was a menu on the table, but okay, so we read the menu, but nobody came over and asked us what we wanted. And then finally, I think somebody got the clue that we were tourists and sort of walked up to us and said, yeah, you just have to go up to the bar and order your food, and then they'll bring it to you. Well, that's how they do it in most places. They don't have what we commonly refer to as table service in North America. You go up to the bar, you order what you want, including your drinks, your food, and you pay for it right then and there as well. And then they'll give you a little sign with a number on it that you take back to your table, or a lot of the tables are already numbered. So you say, I'm sitting at table 101, and when it's ready, they bring it out to you. But you might find that a little strange. But what I like about it is, especially, and this will sound maybe a little weird, at the end of a dinner, after you've been eating for a while, and even though the waiter or waitress or whatever has been bugging the rear end off you through your whole meal, how's that tasting? How's that now? How's everything? Suddenly they disappear when it comes to the bill time, and you can't find them. And you want to leave, especially if you're on a schedule, say you're going to a play or something afterwards. So you're out there hunting all over the place looking for your waitress. You don't have to worry about that. You just have to leave. And you don't tip. There's no tipping in Australia. They do not expect it. And this will be hard for the Americans, especially. In Canada, it's not hard for us because we're cheap as hell. So, no problem. But the Americans tip for everything. And in Australia, no, they don't expect it. And part of the reason too is their minimum wage is so much better than it is here in North America. I know that especially in the States that serving staff depend on the tips to supplement their incomes. And even to a certain extent here in Canada as well. But in Australia right now, the minimum wage is about $23 an hour. Right. And that includes wait staff as well. So yeah, they don't expect it. You just have to get used to the fact that you're kind of going to go up to the bar, you're going to order what you want, and then sit back down.
That's at a pub. Like if you go to a sit-down restaurant, you'll have your table service.
If you go to a really formal restaurant, you'll get table service. Although we went to several with that, and that's not completely true. We found this different from the last time we were there.
Oh, okay.
Even in some of the nicer places, you still kind of they came to your table with the menu, but then they say, when you're ready to order, just go up to the counter, which I found, okay, so they're transferring that even more to the nicer places.
Okay. I didn't realize that. I mean, I haven't been back home in, 7 years?
Yeah.
No, 8. 7 years, because it was 2017. So
now,
wow, I didn't realize that.
If you're in the really touristy areas, like in Sydney, and you're down on Darling Harbour or wherever where there's all kinds of tourist trap restaurants there, many of those they will come and take your order at the table. But you can tell they're not used to doing that too. This poor girl, young lady, at one of those restaurants on Darling Harbour, she was serving us some wine, and she opens up the bottle, and then she's trying to pour it in the glass, and she's nervous. You could see her hand shaking. And I said, "New to this?" And she says, "Yeah, I am. I'm sorry." And she spilled a couple of drops on the table, and she was just so apologetic. And I said, "That's okay. Don't worry about it. It happens to everybody." But you could tell that they're just not quite as used to doing all of that kind of stuff as they are here in North America, too. But the food now, okay, I have come to a conclusion that there are some national foods for Australians.
Okay.
They are pizza, schnitzel, and there was another one that we could get as they call it, chicken parmy.
Yes.
Parmesan,
Uh-huh.
Parmesan as well. Those are on every menu everywhere you go. So you can always get one of those there as well. And you might find like schnitzel. Do you think of
Oh,
schnitzel?
we love our schnitzel. Yeah.
Yeah. Must be the German influence or something, or the Dutch or whatever that in the early days of settlement. I don't know. But yeah, there's actual whole restaurants. I think it's called Schnitzy or Schmitty, no, Schnitzies or something. It's a chain. That's all they sell
Oh, okay.
is schnitzel. Um, so yeah, but they have everything else too as well, like the lamb. I was telling Sean earlier. We had lamb a couple of times actually, and if you don't like lamb because you're used to the lamb we have in here in North America in some cases, try it when you go to Australia.
Mhm.
It's very, very good. Very
Oh, for
good.
sure. Yeah, miles difference. I was telling, like Stephen was saying, we're talking about it off camera beforehand, and my father-in-law brought. He was able to find some. I guess it was like one of the local supermarkets had Australian lamb, New Zealand lamb, and US lamb, and he cooked it all up. And you could like, I'm terrible of like blind taste tests and that sort of thing there, but I could tell you which one was. Well, I could tell which one was the US. The Australian and New Zealand is very, very similar. So I had trouble telling those two apart. But yeah, I could tell you which one the US one was.
Yeah, it's not gamey.
It's
It's
delicious.
very, yeah, it's delicious with it. So yeah, so if you're afraid of lamb, do try it when you're in Australia. One thing I didn't get really a chance to truly eat are bugs. Bugs are basically clawless type of lobster. They look like
Yeah, I know.
yeah, they kind of look like a crab, cross between a crab and a lobster. And there's two kinds we found out. Philippa, some of you may know Philippa from
Hmm.
my channel, That Philippa it lives in Brisbane, and she told us there's two kinds of bugs, and we want to try them. Well, we did go to a restaurant, but unfortunately, the bugs were ground up as an appetizer, so we didn't get like a whole bug. It was bug meat. Very tasty, very much like lobster, as well. So we didn't get though to eat a whole bug, but that's what they call them. One's a certain bay, a Morton Bay bugs,
Yeah,
and
I've never had bugs. I know what you're talking about, but I've never had them. Um, Okay, so I was waiting for someone to mention this. So have Debbie. She's been to Australia as well, and she says the Australian meat pies were great, and I totally agree. That was like if I had to mention an Australian food, I forgot all about the schnitzel. But that's definitely true. But I have to say, like for snack foods, it's meat pies and sausage rolls. And did you try those at all in
I
your
did.
trips?
Well, okay, when you say a meat pie, are you talking about like if you go into a pub and have like, like a steak and Guinness pie or something like that? Is that the kind of meat pie you're talking about? Or are you talking about a meat pie that we would call in Canada a tourtière, which is like a full top and bottom crust pie stuffed with meat and
Yeah,
veg.
it's small. It might be like 10, 15 centimeters round or 4 to 6 inches. Top and bottom pastry. It's more like a handheld snack.
Okay.
You tend to find them more like at sporting events or a cafe or something like that. If you just want to cheap, I mean, you can buy them at 7-Eleven if you want, or you can buy the frozen ones in the supermarket, which
Okay.
actually aren't half bad. I love those things, and I've actually they're very hard to find around here. The closest place that sells Australian meat pies and sausage rolls, and they're going to murder me for saying this because they're actually New Zealand, is about 2 hours away. Once in a while, I'll drive up there and get them, but I've actually learned how to make my own meat pies and sausage rolls here at home. I have not perfected um, the sausage roll pastry yet. I haven't. I'm still struggling with that. But the meat pie, I've pretty much got down pat. So, um,
No, we never tried those when we were there.
okay.
Didn't
Well, if you
realize
ever
it
get
was
it,
a thing.
oh, okay.
But we did bring home this
Canned kangaroo.
canned kangaroo. Okay. Now, this is not really what it says it is. This is what came in the can.
Oh, okay.
It's a gimmick. I opened this one upside down, but I saw these at the airport. I got one with a koala as well, and I thought I gotta have that. Canned kangaroo, but on the live on Sunday, I let people think that we were opening this up and this was going to be like canned kangaroo meat, but no, it's just a novelty thing. But people always ask, did you try kangaroo? No, I have not had kangaroo to this day. I've
Me
asked
either.
people about it and they say it's gamey and it's tough. And what also puts me off is you go to the grocery store and there's a fresh pet food section and they have ground kangaroo meat in sausage. Like
That's
packed.
the only place, as a kid, that was the only place I ever saw it was at the pet foods, pet store. You know, it was sold as pet food. So like when I was an adult and I come over here and people are like, have you had kangaroo meat? I'm like, no, that's pet food. So
Yeah. And
I'm
you
with you
can
on
get
that
it.
one.
Some restaurants have it. Um,
Yes.
and it's fairly pricey. That's the other reason why I didn't bother to try it, because I thought, yeah, if I don't like this, I don't want to be spending $30 on this kind of thing. So, but
Right.
I asked some of the native Australians about it, and you always got the same answer. They'd look at you and go, okay, we know you're a tourist. Well, how much are we going to tell you? So they said, well, it's kind of tough. It's a little bit gamey. It's kind of an acquired taste, is what some of them will say. Other ones will say right outright, yeah, we don't eat that. That's dog food.
Yes.
So, yeah, did not have that kind of thing. You can buy kangaroo jerky and crocodile jerky
Yeah.
and there as well. And I think on one of our trips, I have a friend that's really into jerkies. So I brought him back some kangaroo jerky and he didn't like it, but he liked the crocodile. He said, well,
Okay.
I'll take his word for it because I wasn't trying it. Nope.
I kind of have it like, and to me, it's kind of weird too. Like, you know, the kangaroo and the emu are on the Australian crest, because they're both animals that can't move backwards. So Australia's always moving forward. And I kind of have a weirdness about eating the national animal of Australia that's on our emblem. We kind of like, you know, Americans dining on bald eagles. You know, I kind of see the same sort of association of that. So,
Or us
um,
eating beaver. So,
or yeah, I think that'd be kind of tough and gamey too. I mean, now
oh yeah.
if I'm Bear Grylls out in the bush somewhere and I'm starving to death and the kangaroos, you know, got to help me live another couple of days, I'm sorry for the kangaroo, but that's about the only reason I think I would ever choose to dine on it. Now, the crocodile, I think I'd be interested in. I think that'd be fun to try at least once. But yeah, I think the kangaroo I'll leave. The Pet Food Association and many other things.
Yeah.
So during your journey to Australia, I watched most of your videos, and if you haven't checked out Stephen's videos, go check him out. He did a daily thing every day showing where he went. Him and Walter talked about what they did during the day for about the first half of each video, and then they did a lot of like you used to get to see a lot of the scenery and Stephen's very interesting commentary on it each day. So where did you guys start? Where did you finish? I think you started in Sydney and you went up to the Brisbane
Yep.
area and then came back down through the inland highway, correct?
Yep. We started in Sydney. We were in Sydney for about 3 days when we first got there. My nephew just recently, well, a year ago, moved to Sydney. He's from BC, but then he was working in England for a few years, and now he's moved to Sydney. And I haven't seen him in over 10 years. So we got together with him and his partner and had a nice dinner out and everything. That was great. And then we had a rented car. Okay. Scary times with the rented car because, of course, in Australia, they drive on the other side of the road from us in North America. Now, Walter has driven cars. I wasn't doing it. Okay. I'm a nervous enough driver as it is in my own country, let alone with a rented car somewhere else. That's everything's on the opposite side. But Walter has done that before. And so we took the rented car and we went up to Newcastle. We were on the east coast of Australia, traveling up the east coast. So we went to Newcastle and we went to Coffs Harbour and then to Port Macquarie. And then we ended up in Brisbane. and we were in Brisbane for about 5 days. And then from Brisbane, we traveled to a little place, a little bit more into the interior from the coast, not the outback, okay? Called Stanthorpe,
Stanford. Okay.
Stanthorpe, which is a sleepy little town that you'll miss if you blink when you go through. And then we went to Tamworth, and Tamworth is Sean's hometown, which we did not
Yeah,
know
it's a
there.
wonderful place. You should all go visit. You can blink 3 or 4 times before you drive through the place.
Yeah, yeah, it's fairly
But yeah, it
good
was.
size.
But yeah, you said you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's
Our big claim to fame is the golden guitar.
big guitar.
The go-
There was a lot of big things on this trip. There was the big guitar, the big banana, the big apple, and in one place we were in the big chair. That was down in the Hunter Valley. There at their the botanical gardens in the Hunter Valley. They had this great big huge lawn chair,
Must
that
have missed that. Because you're talking about the Hunter Valley Gardens, correct?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
That's not
it's
far
in
from where
there.
my sister lives.
Oh, okay. Hunter Valley is for people, that's where after Tamworth, that's where we made our way for a couple of nights to the Hunter Valley. We stayed actually in a resort kind of place. It's sort of a golfing kind of place. It was kind of posh, except that we had some problems because they stuck us in a chalet that they were refurbishing. So we didn't have an internet connection. We didn't have a phone connection to call their main reception desk. And you were a ways from the main reception desk in this place because it kind of wound around not a mountain per se, but a very hilly area. Um, but it was kind of a nice setting because we had a
Yeah.
beautiful deck looking out to nature and to the magpies. Okay. The magpies are these birds and they have quite the song. Um,
Yes.
and you hear them all the time going off in that. So I did do a short with the magpies and their song in it on my video series as well. But yeah, we spent 2 nights in Hunter Valley. There's all kinds of wineries there. We went around to a few. Unfortunately, because Walter was driving, he couldn't do any tasting, and I didn't want to taste anything without him. I mean, that's just sad when you're doing a tasting all by yourself, kind of a thing. So, and what were we going to do with it? We did buy a couple of bottles of wine, but we weren't bringing any home with us because, nothing says that you've been in another country buying wine, like when your suitcase comes down the carousel leaking red wine and everything out of the
Hmm.
side of it. So no, we didn't do that. But we went to a really neat winery there called, well, there's a wine we buy here a lot in Ontario. That's Australian. It's McGuigan's. It's called,
Hmm.
and they're a big winery in Australia, but we only get
Yes.
a couple of their different varieties. They have so many more. But the daughter of the family has opened her own winery, and she's done it in a goth vampira like theme. And the inside of the winery that is fantastic to look at. It is like something out of a gothic movie kind of a thing inside. And the wines actually are very good as well. We bought a couple of her bottles of wine and really enjoyed those. And then from Hunter Valley, we were supposed to go to the Blue Mountains. But while we were in Australia, several things did happen of significance. One, they had a heavy rainstorm that flooded parts of Sydney, flooded parts of the Blue Mountains to the point where all of the places in the Blue Mountains while we were in the area were closed for several days. You couldn't go into the Blue Mountains because a road got washed out. Some other things, little mudslides, things like that in there. So, but we'd been to the Blue Mountains before, so on a previous trip. So we didn't really feel disappointed about that. But
Definitely a nice place to visit if you haven't been there before.
yeah, yeah. Um, so about so we were okay. So we headed right back for Sydney and had another 5 days in Sydney. and we traveled around in Sydney. And the amazing thing about Sydney is, of course, it's right on the water because it is a port. You can get anywhere in the different suburbs of Sydney by taking the water ferries, the water taxis and that. And so we did. We took them as far as we could possibly go to a place called Parramatta, which is at the furthest end of the water transportation system. And that was kind of interesting too. So we saw more of the Sydney outlying areas than we had ever on trips before. But Sydney, driving in Sydney, I thought driving in Toronto or New York are bad. Oh God, no. Oh God, no. Sydney, there was a lot of screaming in the car, me at Walter going, "You're too close to that car. Don't go that way." No, which, and it's all one-way streets everywhere you
Yeah.
go. It's one-way
And the
street.
roads are so narrow. It's like they built these roads back in like the 1940s, 1950s for that sort of, and they don't have the room to upgrade it. Yeah, driving in Sydney is horrible. The best thing you can do is drop your car off in Gosford or some outlying suburb where there's a nice car park and take the train in.
Yeah.
That's what that'd be my biggest advice to you is don't drive in Sydney if you can absolutely avoid it, don't do it. For sure. So yeah, I can understand the screaming. Thankfully, I tell Amanda when we drive, like if we have to drive through Sydney, I just tell her, look, knit, read a book, play a game on your phone, do something, just don't look where we're going because
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's scary. But having said that, one thing about the Australian drivers, and maybe you don't agree with this, Sean, but coming from here in our area in Toronto, we have the busiest and biggest highway in the world in Toronto area, 26 lanes of traffic across, and it always are packed, and people are very ignorant as drivers. They're horrible. They are not courteous. If you're trying to squeeze over into another lane, they won't let you in.
right.
In Australia, they do. There's not a problem. They're not honking their horns at you. They're very patient drivers. And there were situations in Sydney, especially, where it would try your patience for sure. And they don't speed for the most part. And here's why.
Oh, well, the fines are ridiculous down there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, my sister was always telling my brother-in-law, slow down. This is because they got speed cameras everywhere, and then they have these like random ones where it's just like a little car on the side of the road and it's got a speed camera. They're supposed to have signs saying that there's a speed camera like there, but the sign's like this big. So yeah, you don't speed down there because yeah, the points in your license are not good, and the fines for speeding, from what I understand, I've never had one, thankfully. A couple $100 at least. So yeah,
I heard 400
yeah,
to start with in that. And
yeah, you don't mess around there with speed. That's just not something you do. Like here, like in Virginia, there's certain roads, if you're not driving 10 or 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, you got to get run over. But yeah, you don't do that mess in Australia.
that's the same here in Canada as well. Like
Oh yeah,
401.
I've been on your roads.
Yep.
It's like driving in Virginia. Alabama, I found, was very much like Australia. Everyone down there was courteous. I love driving in Alabama. I'd go down there and drive in a heartbeat. But I guess if you can survive in Toronto or Virginia, you can pretty much go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, if you can survive in Sydney, you could drive anywhere, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of stuff. But no, they're very courteous. And you know when there's going to be a speed camera because it's announced. You see it coming. There is no question. And I think that's something here in my own country, here in Ontario, they should implement more of that because it does act as a control mechanism, I think. People know that it's there. Here in Ontario, people get a speeding ticket, they don't even bother to pay it. It doesn't deter them. But obviously it does in Australia. So yeah, very nice people. And roadkill is very interesting. When you're out outside of the city and that down more into areas like Tamworth and things like that, you will see huge roadkill. A kangaroo.
Yes.
This is kind of gross. Split right down the middle. Flayed open. on the side of the road because poor little thing got schmucked by a transport because they come out at night, especially dusk. They tell you you shouldn't be on the roads if you're like not a native, and maybe even if you're a native, between dusk or at dawn, because the kangaroos and other creatures, they're flopping all over the place. And they tell you too, we were told that if you're don't try to swerve to miss the kangaroo or anything, hit it, because if you swerve, you're going to go off into the ditch. You're going to do more damage to yourself. Just hit the kangaroo, which I only can imagine that'd be like very much like hitting a deer here,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, about the same size. I mean, they can do some wicked damage. I've been on a bus that hit a roo once, and thankfully it didn't do a whole lot of damage. But yeah, like if you did it to a regular car, it would not be fun. So
I noticed that
thankfully,
people with half-ton trucks or three-quarter-ton trucks, and that even transports, they have a rhubarb
yeah.
on the front of
Mhm.
the truck as well. So although I was told once that was because of the kangaroo business, but then somebody else told me no, that's not its main function. Its main function or something has to do if you're out in swampy area. I guess it's something you can, if you get stuck, they can grab onto to pull you out or something like that. So I don't know
Oh,
what the true story is now.
I didn't live anywhere near a swamp. I do now actually.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. That's more in the northern part. But yeah, I think it's more to because if something gets hit by, see, when you come onto the Brekkie, the guy who says you never know what you're going to hear about. Um, yeah, I think it's more to limit the damage to your vehicle if you happen to hit a kangaroo, or if you're out in the outback, a camel. There's more camels in the Australian outback than there is in the Middle East, from my understanding.
Yeah, that
So
I
there,
found that interesting. You
yeah,
know,
so there's your fun fact for the day. I remember once we almost hit. I was on another bus. See, I really shouldn't travel by bus at night in Australia. Um, yeah, I think we hit a kangaroo once. We almost hit a cow or a camel. I don't know what it was. I was standing up in the middle of the aisle, and the bus just swerved and missed whatever this was. Um, so yeah, but thankfully I was holding the seats, because after the kangaroo incident, I learned whenever you're walking on a bus at night time in Australia, you hold onto the seats as you go up, because you don't want to. Because the first time I didn't, I went flying forward about 4 rows before I could catch one. So yeah, there you
yeah,
go. Anyway, we'll move on to something a little more, little less unpleasant, because
yeah.
otherwise people probably running away in droves. Um, Andrea's asking where I got my T-shirt. I have to have one. It was a Christmas gift, from someone a couple of years ago, but I believe you can find it on Amazon. If I can find the link, I'll try and send it on over to you as well. And Nez says, my daughter got a $500 ticket for going 10 miles above limit on the way home, taught her a lesson. They made fun at me for obeying the speed limit. I had a great laugh at that. My brother got a speeding ticket once, and he came home swearing and cursing and carrying on. It was like $180, but that was back in the late 90s.
Mm.
And yeah, he was carrying on about that. And then I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to go buy something. It was like $200. And he's like, ooh, like, well, if you didn't get your speeding ticket, you could get one too.
Yeah. But there's a lot of beasties out there, and a lot of the animals, the wildlife in Australia are nocturnal too.
Yes.
So, I had people say to me before we went to Australia again, oh, they'd be afraid to go to Australia because everything there will kill you. Well, no, yes, they do have a lot of venomous snakes and a lot of venomous spiders and things like
You have
that.
to go out looking for them.
Yeah, you don't see them in like the urban areas or anything like that. And unless you're going to go out into the outback or something, truck around in the bush kind of a thing. And even then, unless you're threatening them, if they
Yeah.
threaten, you're fine.
Yeah.
One thing Philippa told us about it. It's the huntsman spider. I think it's huntsman.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh my God, they are one creepy looking thing. They're like, ooh. And apparently she says to me, and I wish she hadn't told me this. She says, oh yeah, sometimes you end up showering with them, and because
I
they
look,
get showered, but they're not. poisonous and they won't hurt a human, but they're just hideous. If I saw one of those in the shower with me, boy, I'd be screaming like a little schoolgirl. There'd be
Like they're fairly big. Huntsman spiders are fairly common. You see them all the time. I've heard the urban legend about them, and apparently they're actually very venomous,
oh
from
yeah.
what I've heard. But their fangs are so short they cannot penetrate your skin or anything else like that. So they are not dangerous to humans whatsoever. So, um, you know,
I
don't worry
saw
about
one.
that. But I've actually seen more venomous snakes at the water park. It's like an hour up the street here in Williamsburg, Virginia, than I saw in the entire time I was in Australia. So if you've been putting off going to Australia because of the snakes and the spiders, don't worry about them. As I said, it's really you have to go out looking for them. And if you really are that if you're afraid of them, go during the North American summer. It's wintertime down there, and all the snakes and the spiders and the drop bears and everything else will be all asleep. So don't ever let that put you off. To me, the flight down and back is the worst part.
Yes. Yeah. 22 hours from
Yes.
Toronto. It was 5 hours to Vancouver. And then we had a 2 hour wait over. And then we got right back on the same plane we got on in Toronto and another 15 hours to Sydney. And I'm telling you, if you're going to do this kind of trip, pay for upgraded seating. We got we paid for what they call it, premium economy, which
Mhm.
meant we had two seats together instead of three, and we were at a bulkhead. We were actually at the bulkhead that separates the economy from the business class people.
Yeah.
And it much more leg room. And Sean, you would definitely need that.
Oh, I do. I don't fly any like I'm cheap. I'm frugal. I'm cheap, but when I fly home to Australia, I pay for premium economy.
Yeah.
I'm 6'5". I cannot. I mean, I've done it, but I will. Especially now that I'm getting older, I can't do the regular economy. Now, if you're 5'4", the regular economy seat will probably be okay for you. I've seen shorter women curled up and gone to sleep, and I'm very jealous of them. But yeah, it's like an extra $1,000 or something like that, but it's night and day. You'll actually get, I'd love to go business class, but that's like $12,000 a person.
I know.
I can't afford that. If someone wants to gift me a ticket, business class ticket to Australia, I will happily accept it, but I'll need two because if I go business class and my wife's back in premium economy, that's not going to go well.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always said I would love to go business class there, but you're right. Like it's 10 to $12,000. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a lot of money. But
yeah.
you almost think though, as you're halfway through the flight there, and realize you still have another 8 hours to go, you're going, maybe it would have been worth it, small mortgage on the house so I could get that seating. But
Well, the other issue too is once you do it once, you'll never, ever, ever want to go back to the back of the plane.
oh no,
And
no, no.
that's the other part that scares me too. Is like, yeah, I think I'm just best off just doing the premium economy. Like it's at first, I think you depends on the airline. Like Qantas's premium economy is vastly different to United or Delta's or Air Canada's. You have to really look up what you're actually getting. We usually fly with United, which I'm very, very happy with their international service. Last time I flew with them, I think it was like 30 out of 38 or 39 inches of leg room, which is about 6 or 7 more than regular, which doesn't sound like much,
That
15 to
makes a
17
difference.
centimeters. But I'm 6'5". I could actually stretch my legs out
Yeah, it
and
makes
not
a
have
difference.
like even if the person in front of me reclined, um, they weren't in my face. It's worth every penny.
Yeah.
When you're flying that distance. I totally agree with you on that there as well. So
Well, we were flying Air Canada, and luckily we didn't have any problems with Air Canada except on coming home, and our flight was delayed because a flight was delayed in Toronto. See, basically for Air Canada to Australia, it is a flight there, and then that flight turns around in Australia and Sydney and flies back to Canada, and
right.
that's how it works. So every 2 days that goes back and forth. So if one of those flights gets delayed for one reason or another, it's a chain reaction. So we were delayed by 4 hours getting out of Sydney, and then when we hit Vancouver, we were delayed another 4 hours. So we started this, okay, jet lag. Not so bad going over there.
Hmm.
You know, we make sure that when we got to Sydney, it was something like 8 o'clock in the morning, right? But our
Yeah.
hotel was actually available. So, but we did not, as much as we wanted to go in and go to sleep, we didn't. We try to stay
No.
up as long as we can when the
Hmm.
first night so that we get acclimatized. Coming home though, I'm still suffering some jet lag from that.
Oh, coming back, it's
Uh,
always worse. Yeah.
It is.
I tell everybody going eastbound, coming back, eastbound to the, North America's 10 times worse. Because I'm with you. Yeah. You get down there at 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, depending on your flight from North America. You stay up all night, you crash at like 6:30. Like I've fallen asleep at dinner in a pub the first
Yep.
night. And I'm sure you and Walter have
Yep.
as well. But yeah, next day you wake up fresh as a daisy and off you go and away you go. So
Well,
okay, I'll answer Donna's question in just a second. I see that. But yeah, coming back, yeah, it takes me a good week or so for me to recover. And it's just interesting. It's different in the two different directions.
and the weird part too is when you're flying there, you lose a day.
Hmm.
We left on a Sunday. We arrived on Tuesday. Monday
Yep.
didn't exist.
Nope.
But coming home, we left on the Thursday morning. We arrived in Vancouver the same day, Thursday morning, but not really. Okay. It's all to do with the time zones. And that really messes you up. Okay. With the time zones and everything going about, because you try to think in North American time, you got to stop that immediately when you get there. Just think all in Australia time. Don't keep saying, I kept going. Now at home, it would be this time or whatever, which I had to think about that when we were doing our videos and that. And on one occasion, I was doing the live with the social review with Shannon and Stephanie and Russ. And for them, it was 7 p.m. here. Wednesday night, it was
9 a.m.
9,
Thursday morning.
9 Thursday morning for us. So, you got to figure it out so we'd be able to do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it messes with you.
Yeah. Let me answer. Okay, so Donna is asking what color am I using for this gnome? I am using the same background color. I'm just doing a light green just so I can kind of, I don't know if you can see it on camera. Let me see. Back, you can see all the mess. Just because this is just like a practice block. I'm going to display it, but it's just going to be practice. It's not going in any show. The top, I'm just using color coordinated. Like I got the light green for the light green section, black for the black. I've already done the white nose. I did that before I came online, and then a dark green. So I'm going to try to use matching on the top just for, that way it doesn't show all my errors as well. Let's see. What was we're talking about the plane. What did I miss?
Well, Donna is asking me a question. She says, what's your favorite Australian food that you cannot get in Canada? Okay, you're going to laugh at this. It's tasty cheese. Now,
I love tasty cheese. Yes, I am with you on that 100%. Yes.
it is actually called, that's the brand name. It is called Tasty Cheese. It is a cheddar cheese, but it's different from what we are. It's not a processed cheese. It's a real cheese.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is exactly, but yeah, you find it everywhere down there, and it
Yep.
is the best tasting cheese on earth. And I don't know why they don't sell it in North America because every man and a donkey would buy it.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
I would have
yeah,
loved to have brought some home, but can't do. But yeah, it is. Was my favorite food. We ate a lot of tasty cheese with it. And I think anything else, see, most of the food is pretty much the same. There's of course the schnitzel. Um, I'm not a fan of schnitzel, period. Like I don't hate schnitzel,
yeah,
but I've been so whether it's Australian or what we have here in North America or wherever, that's not something I don't think I even had. No, there was one day I had schnitzel. Um, Trying to think if there was anything else. Australian beef, what I had in steak and that kind of thing is very good. It's
okay.
good cut or grade of beef anyways that we had. So I thought that was very, very good. Um, Yeah, really, we did not eat that many things that were that different from here.
Yeah. Did you get any doner kebabs or anything like that while you were down there? They were more like in this like cafe type thing. So you may not have come across those.
No, I don't. No, I don't think so. No, we never had any of that. What are they called?
It was called a doner
Like,
kebab. Basically, it's like this, you'll see a big piece of meat on a spit. That's like a
oh,
rotating.
a doner. We
Yeah.
call those in Canada doner. Yeah, no, we didn't
Uh,
have any of that. Uh,
oh, you're
but
missing out. You need to try that. It doesn't matter where you go. Like it's usually ran by, especially if you find someone that's like Middle Eastern, running the shop, you know you're in the right place
yeah,
because I don't know how they season it or what they do to it, but it's absolutely amazing. Basically, they cut like thin slices of meat off this big spit, and then they put it into a like a wrap, and put some spiced vegetables and that sort of stuff there. It's absolutely amazing. I love doner kebabs or doner or whatever you guys in
we
Canada
call them
call it.
doner. But
Yeah,
yeah, but it's funny because we have them here, but I've never had them here either. And I'm going to tell you why. Any place I've ever seen them with this meat on the stick here in Ontario, it
yeah.
kind of turns me off because how long has that meat been sitting there spinning around? So I've stayed away from that. But I should try it.
You
I
should.
have
I
said it
love it.
before. Yeah. I
Yeah,
guess I
try it
just
one day and let me know.
yeah. But yes, I did see those there, but because they were the same as what we have here or whatever, and I don't have them here, I didn't have them there. So yeah. I did have what was it? It was in a pub. It was a curry pot pie kind of a thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which was really, really good. And we did have some Indian food in a few places too. And but I love Indian food and we can get it here readily enough too. So I can't say it was anything different from what I've had here. But yeah, but I'm trying to think of anything unique besides the bugs.
Yeah, we do a lot of British inspired stuff. So like the meat pies, sausage rolls. I mean, I think they call them pasties or something like that in
Yeah,
Britain. I've never been over
yeah.
there. And that sort of thing there as well. But yeah, I think the schnitzels are pretty popular. There's a place near my sister's house called Mr. Schnitzel, and what they do is they cut up the schnitzel and put it into a wrap, and you can pretty much put whatever filling you want in there. Like there's a like my favorite one would probably be a Mr. Hawaiian, which is like they put pieces of ham and pineapple in with the chicken schnitzel,
Yeah.
and it's in a wrap, and I love that place. Like I have to stop there. Like when I land in Sydney, it's in Newcastle, so like an hour and a half up the road. Um, yeah, we make sure we stop at Mr. Schnitzel on the way up. That's kind of my go-to.
I see that Pam says, "Did you try Angus beef when you were here? It's the best beef around." Okay, Pam, I always love it when people from other countries think that we in Canada don't know anything about food. Angus beef is one of our major beef products in Canada. It comes from Alberta. It's triple A. It is the best beef around. And no, did not. Yes, I did try it in Australia as well at the place in Tamworth that we stayed and we ate in the restaurant there, and that was what their steak was Angus beef, and it was very good. But is it any better than what is in Canada? No, I would say it was exactly the same, actually. Very good quality.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think Australia, like, and this is just my opinion on the course, but when I was growing up as a kid, like beef was always like chewing on shoe leather. But from what I've heard, like the beef, like generally has really stepped up its game in the last probably
yeah.
20, 30 years. So,
Well, that's the
um,
way it was here in Canada too, for many years.
okay, so
It so it's improved over the years. But talking about the food and the British and that's one reason why I like people ask me why we've gone 4 times to Australia. Well, I'll tell you why. It is like being in Canada, except with an accent that's different because we come from British roots, Canada,
yeah,
Australia. So we have a lot in common. Well, we're part of the Commonwealth as well. So it's nice. It's a different place. It's different, but it isn't so foreign that you feel completely out of it. Um, And the Australian people is the other reason I go, because I will say this all the time. Australian people are probably the nicest people I have ever met in any foreign country I've been to. They are very hospitable. They are very down to earth. And what really I find refreshing about Australian life there is they do not stand upon political correctness about stuff. They will call a spade,
That's you all. That's
and they're not doing it in a nasty way. It's just there you are, and no one gets uptight about it. Here in Canada, you have to watch every word you say, especially in my province in Ontario, because you're going to offend somebody somewhere because of whatever. So the Australian people, very, very nice, very friendly. Service is excellent everywhere you go in Australia. I mean, North American service people, especially in Canada, not so much maybe in the States, because I have found in the States that service people usually are very accommodating. But in Canada, oh God, no. They're just, okay, yeah. You go into a Walmart here in Canada and you go, where's such and such? And I don't know, check over in those aisles somewhere. You know, in Australia, they'll take you right to it and
yeah.
help you. They always greet you, you know, g'day, mate, you know, kind of a thing. And it's just the atmosphere is so much nice. And you're not in fear, I find. Like in a big city like Sydney, Sydney's like not as big as Toronto, but I think it's about 2.5 million or something like
I think
that.
it's closer to 3 or 4 now. It's
But
actually
now that big,
I
yeah.
think so. Yeah, I think it was 3 when I left, and that was 20 some years ago. So
Okay. So maybe I'm thinking of Brisbane is more
yes,
around
Brisbane's
that.
about, yeah, I'd say about that.
But either way, you're not looking over your shoulder. We walked the city a lot. It's a very walkable city. And never once feared for, like, where's my wallet? Where's my bag? Nothing like that at all. I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but nothing like if you go downtown Toronto now, you're constantly like you're clutching everything anymore, which is sad, but that's really the reality of it. So yeah, so we go for that. We go for really the people more than anything else.
And I think the other thing too with Australia, like unless you've been down there, like you don't realize how big it is. It's basically the same size as the continental US. Like if you go from Sydney to Perth, which is like coast to coast, it's basically like going from Washington DC all the way out to Vegas. I mean, it's not quite as wide as the US, but give or take a few hundred miles, it's not that different as well. So, I mean, it takes you a long time. Like a month sounds like a long time, but you really need that just to get your feet wet and just explore a small portion of the country. Like you can't see it all, in a week.
No, you can't. You can't. And I mean, on top of it all, the flight being so long, as we've said too, you want to make it worth your while.
Oh, definitely.
You don't want to be on the plane longer than you're in the country, kind of a thing. But
I mean,
you're right.
I've done a 10-day trip down there where it was for my mother's funeral. So, I mean, we flew down and that was as much time as I could get off work because I just started a new job. Like I couldn't just say, okay, well, I'm gone for 6 weeks. Don't pay me for 4 of them. Because they might have said, okay, well, he might not be coming back. You never know. But yeah, you need, it's a day and a half, like you said, a day and a half down there. Like if you can get 22 hours from Toronto to Sydney is really, really good. Like I think the shortest time I've done door to door is like 26. So I've done the Air Canada route from DC to Sydney, but I think what was it? It was DC to DC to Vancouver, and then we stopped in Honolulu to refuel because back in those days they couldn't quite make it to Vancouver to Sydney.
Yeah, if we wanted to a little cheaper flight, we could have gone from Toronto to Los Angeles and then across. Stop over there, but we wanted a direct flight. And so going from it's not quite direct because you have to go from Toronto to Vancouver and then a little bit of a wait over and then but it's more direct, costs more, but then everything in Canada costs more. So
you wouldn't have to clear US customs either. Like if you went through Los Angeles, you'd have to clear US customs. So yeah, I would have, if I was you, I would have done the Vancouver route too, even if it cost a little more. I think for sure, I mean, it's not difficult to clear U.S. customs as long as you're
Oh,
not a naughty boy. But it's just one less thing. If you got to have, I wouldn't want to have to go through two immigrations to um, do that. Although I did do that once, I didn't realize it when I went on that trip I was telling you about. Was Sydney, Honolulu? That was an international transit lounge. When I got to Vancouver, I had to clear Canadian customs.
right.
There was no transit lounge. Like I had to clear Canada, yeah, immigrate into Canada, and then about 20 minutes later, I cleared U.S. customs because in most Canadian airports you clear. Well, I suppose you would have cleared it in Toronto actually before you left because they do a lot of pre-clearance
You
before you
mean
board the plane in Canada.
what for to go to the?
If you went to LA,
Oh
you'd
yeah, you
clear.
could. You
Yeah,
could
you
do it
yeah.
here.
That way you step off the plane in LA
Yeah.
as a domestic flight, which I think is a really smart idea. I don't know who came up with that idea, but that was a really good idea of the U.S. government,
But going
which is
through
not some.
customs in Australia was really a breeze. I mean, you have
Oh
to
yeah,
have what they call an ETF, which is basically a visa, but it's
yes,
electronic visa, right? And you get that here.
yeah,
We got that beforehand. I think it cost us $20 or something, and it's already
about that.
registered with your passport, like electronically. So there's nothing you have to show anybody except your passport. But they have kiosks. We do here in Canada now as well for going through Canada customs, but very easy. In Australia, you put your passport into the kiosk. It asks you a couple of questions. You check like yes or no on them a little bit. It takes your picture and then it prints you out a little receipt. And you just walk up to the customs guy and hand it, and he goes, bye
That
bye.
thing actually worked because the last time I went down, I think they were just introducing that, and I tried it and it wouldn't work. So we, but the nice thing with me is I get to go through the citizen line in both countries.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so I go through the citizen line. Amanda gets to go with me because she's my wife. Even though she's not an Australian citizen, she gets to go through the Australian citizen line with me. And then when I come back to the US, even though I'm a green card holder, they treat green card holders as a citizen. Thankfully, when it comes to entering the country, so I get to take the shorter line both times, which is really nice. Now, if I go to Canada, it's a whole different story. I have to go on the foreigner line like with everybody
oh, yeah,
else. But
right. Yeah. But
um,
we'll let anybody in.
yeah, I
Canada.
mean they let us in when I drove across the border, which a couple of years ago, which I thought was a lot of fun. I've never been able to drive across a international border before. I grew up in Australia, so obviously, driving across a
Right.
border.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do that. And in Australia too, they're very, very strict on what you bring into the country because they really protect the environment because they've had in their history, they've had all kinds of different things,
Yes,
species that have gotten there that aren't native that have caused hell, like the cane toad and bunnies and
yes,
all that kind of.
rabbits. Yeah, also yeah,
So if you've got food on you, don't. They tell you there's signs everywhere, like dump it. They have garbage cans when you get off the plane. If you've got anything, throw it away. I mean, if it's something that is wrapped like a chocolate bar, that's not a biggie deal. But
hmm
you've got something that's open or whatever, and they have dogs sniffing you as you're standing to go through to go to the kiosk. These dogs are coming up. It's a little
yep.
unnerving, these great big sheepdog or police dogs kind of a thing. And they're right into you. They're all over the place. And you're going, please don't stop.
Don't try and pet them.
Oh no. No, no, no,
But
no, no.
yeah, Amanda did that the first time she went down there, and they were very like step away from the animal.
Yeah, yeah, no. They take that very, very seriously. And I don't blame them.
Yeah,
Like
but with that, if you have any food, even if it's a candy, like, and sometimes, especially if you like, a lot of flights land at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, like from LA, San Francisco, because Delta's coming in, United, American, Qantas, they all land at the same time. It's sometimes easier to go through the declare something line. You check yes for food, you declare something. If it's a chocolate bar or something silly, they'll just say, okay, what do you got? I
yeah,
got candy. If it's commercially packaged and it's not fresh, it's not perishable.
yeah.
Um, they'll usually just say, okay, have a nice day, and off you go. So, I mean, if you're not sure, declare it. If you declare it and they find something that's not permissible, they're just going to take it from you. You won't get a fine. But if you don't declare it and they find it, then you thought the speeding fines were bad. You don't want to know what it's going to cost you for
Yeah.
that as well. So, okay, Deb says we found Australia to be really expensive compared to home. That was in 2023. And that's something that Pam was saying too, that they've gotten really expensive. Now, everything in America's gotten expensive over the last year or two as well. So I don't know if it was,
Yeah.
how did you find it?
Yeah, I had somebody ask me that question about the food and stuff, and we were in the grocery stores quite a bit because most of the places we stayed at, we had gotten a suite that had a kitchen in it and a whole bit, so that we, if we want to, we could cook some things or have at least brekkie kind of a thing. And I did not find their prices any more expensive than what we're paying right now in Canada for produce and stuff like that, with the exception of
Okay.
bananas.
Oh, bananas are ridiculously expensive.
We saw them at $4.99 a kilogram, $5.99 a kilogram, and then by the time we left, $7.99 a kilogram for bananas. So kilogram, for those of you guys that aren't familiar, that's about 2.2 pounds. So, basically divide that number in half for a pound of bananas, which is very, very expensive. We pay 58, 59, 60, 65 cents a kilogram, not a kilogram,
Pound.
a pound.
No, I think ours is like 40, depending on which store you go to.
Yeah.
Here, the last time I checked, I think it was like 41 cents a pound.
Yeah.
So like 82, like probably like 90 cents US for a kilogram in my area here. But yeah, bananas are always expensive in Australia.
Well,
I
apparently
remember,
they had a bad season or something.
oh, that'll push the price right up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that they wherever the main is it Cavan or something brand of bananas. It's a big producer.
I
Excuse
can't
me,
I can't
bananas, I don't
remember.
know. And they were literally in the grocery stores rotting because no one was buying them. They were black. So but all the other prices on things, really, no. And the other thing too that you have to keep in mind when you go to Australia is when you see the price of something, whether it's a shirt, whether it's food, whether it's beer, whatever, that is the final price. It's
Yes.
the tax is included in that. So, you go to a restaurant and a hamburger is $18 in a restaurant, it's $18. Here in Canada, you can pay $18 for a hamburger in a restaurant easily, but then there'll be 13% tax on top of that. And then your tip.
Yes.
You don't have those two things in there. So, then it works out relatively about the same, at least for Canadian prices. Not sure with American prices. Gas was
Yeah.
probably a little bit more expensive than what we're paying.
Oh, you cry when you go to the gas pump down there.
Yeah.
Um,
It was like
Speaking of which, I found that interesting. Like, I almost got arrested a couple of times down there because here in the US, and I'm not sure how it is in Canada because I never bought fuel in Canada. You prepay at the pump, or you go inside and pay before you fuel up. In Australia,
just pump it.
you pump it and go and pay afterwards. Like I remember, I was in one place years ago, one of my visits. I yeah, I went ahead and filled my car up, and then I got in the driver's seat. I started the car up, and I was getting ready to pull away, and then I'm like, "Oh crud! I haven't paid for my gas yet." That poor person inside's probably getting ready to call the police. And so the next time I went to put gas in the car, or petrol as they call it down there, I walked inside before I put fuel in. And I said, "Look, I want to prepay. I want to pay for my fuel up front." And he looked at me and he's like, "You must be American or Canadian." I told myself, the last time I did this, I almost drove off without paying. So I said, I want to just get it over and done with so I don't forget.
Well, the first time we filled up with gas when we were in Australia, we're looking at the pump. And like you said, they have the buttons for prepaying and we're paying by credit card, right? So
Yeah.
we didn't know how big this tank was on this particular car we had. And so we put in a certain amount and it didn't really fill it up, but that was fine. But the next time we're trying to figure out where those buttons were, and they weren't on the tank. And I said to Walter, well, shove it in the hole and let it go. That's the way it used to be here in Canada
Yeah.
too. I know. And there's certain pumps that still are that way in Canada, but for the most part, they're like what you're used to,
Yeah.
prepay for it with it. But yeah, just that was kind of nice. I like that. Because it was like the old days again. People,
Yeah.
because it's a trust thing, you know. You're yours. I feel like I'm already a criminal when I have to prepay for the gas. You're telling me that I'm going to thieve it. You're not going to let me thieve it. You're not going to let me even take the chance. You're assuming I'm a thief. Whereas in Australia, it was like, yeah, okay, you're good for it, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And
I
I
mean,
think that's
I mean,
for the attitude.
yeah, I don't mind doing it either way. I mean, I've kind of gotten, I like that I don't have to worry about it afterwards. I'd rather just put my card in. I always jiggle it to make sure it's not um, one of those skimming things. But I kind of like paying for it up front, and that way, as soon as I'm done, I can just get in my car and go off in the distance, and I don't have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm
Yeah.
very introverted. Like, you see me here on camera, and I'm chatting and having a good time, and that sort of thing there. But yeah, if I can, like, I love my self-service checkouts. I know some people don't, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, and what works best for you is great. If you don't like self checkout, I think there should be staff checkouts for people to use. But if for those that like it, I think keep it. So um Deb's saying that regular gas is 2.12 a liter in British Columbia. What was
Yeah.
the fuel prices down in Sydney and Brisbane and that?
They ranged in price from about 189 a liter to 229 a liter, depending on
Okay.
where you were
Right.
in the area. So, and right now, I'm not sure what we're paying in Ontario. We're paying less than BC. BC is always a little higher than what we pay in Ontario. I think we're paying around 180 something right now in Ontario. I don't know.
Okay.
Not my job to fill up the car. I
Yeah.
don't.
I was just curious, yeah, because I mean, I think here depends on what part of the country you're in, of course, but I think in our area here, it's about 350 a gallon US. So,
So roughly divide that by 4, and that will give you
or
sort of a liter. So
yeah.
that's still cheaper than what we're paying.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're looking at 350 divided by 4,
So that's what,
one.
70, about 80 cents.
Yeah, and then you got to convert, add about
Yeah,
20% for your conversion. It's about $1 a liter, I guess. Dollar,
God,
dollar 10,
if
something
we
like
got
that.
gas for $1 a liter, we'd all be like, think we're rich. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
great. That would be amazing. But
Yeah. So if you ever drive to Canada, fuel up in Buffalo before you cross the border is my advice.
yeah, you want to do that. Now something I was talking about the security with gas and that. One thing we did find though, and this was in Sydney though, and the grocery stores in Sydney, right downtown, um, there was a security guard standing by the kiosks where you like the self-serving things.
Uh-huh.
I'm watching it. So I think that and I know it's happened here in our country too. There's people who are not, running everything through on that. So I guess they have full-time security that were watching to make sure people were, scanning every one of their items that were there.
I've had a situation once or twice at Kroger where they've actually like they pick random people and they actually go through and check to make sure you scanned everything. They've done that to me a couple of times over. I don't care. I scan everything I buy, and if they want to check me once in a while, I don't care. I mean, if I got nothing to hide, why worry about it?
Yeah, well, I don't, I get why they're doing it because, well,
Yeah.
yeah, they have to do it. Now, here in Canada, at our local Walmart, they don't have security guards, but they have staff that are right there watching you like a hawk because they've had a lot of theft, where people are not scanning everything through. So, I guess maybe they should go back to regular checkouts again. But
Yeah. I think it's nice to have the option because I said
Yeah.
there are folks like me that like like the self checkouts because I can do it a lot quicker than most people can. So, but I think it's nice to have both.
Yeah.
But we'll
Yeah.
leave it at that. It's a very controversial issue. I don't want to get into it and start a fight here on the channel with the chat and everything else there as well. But I totally get that as well. But it's getting close to 9:30. So let me ask you, what was your favorite part of this trip? I mean, you've been down there 4 times before, and I'm sure each time you go, you find something that was your favorite. But what was your favorite thing that you saw? What was your favorite part of the trip this time around?
Okay. Two things. First thing is going to a animal sanctuary and feeding the kangaroos again because I've done it before, but I love them. And I love scritching them behind the ear, and they just lay there. They're like a cat. They lay in the
Which
sun.
one did you go to?
It was one was that in the Hunter Valley? Yes, Hunter Valley.
Okay.
And I forget what the name of it was.
Okay.
But I need Walter here to tell me. He remembers all this
No,
stuff.
you're fine. I was just curious. 'Cause I know you went to Australia Zoo as well.
Yes, we did go to Australia Zoo. I like the Australia Zoo. I've had a few people tell me who are natives to Australia or live in Australia say, oh, they don't like the Australia Zoo. It's gone downhill since Steve Irwin passed away and stuff like that. I've been to it now twice, and I still like it. I think it's a nice zoo.
Yeah.
So that and the other thing that was really nice is we got to meet up with Philippa,
Yes,
and
that was a lot of fun to see.
we had a great day with her, and we met her husband as well, and they took us to dinner at this nice winery as well. That was a really great day. The only thing was, I thought that Walter was scary driving. Philippa said, "Oh well, I can always make a Yui," which and so that became a. I kept saying, "Oh well, you can always make a Yui." It's kind of like saying, "Well, that'll quilt out." Well, you can always make a Yui too. But it was really nice to see her, and I was really glad that we were able to spend some time with her and her husband while we were there too. So those are two things that are going to stand out. There's so many things, they come to me in flashes. That's why I had to do
Yeah.
a video every day. I won't remember. I'm old.
It was really fun to see that. If you haven't seen his videos, let me throw that in the chat real quick. I'll put Stephen's line up link. I was close. I got the first three letters right. So that's what, like a 75. So that's what
Yeah,
a
really.
D.
Yeah.
So yeah, go check the videos out. As I mean, I cheated, and I told Stephen this before, so he already knows. But I kind of skipped the first part of it where they were talking, and I just watched the video, like the scenery part, because I wanted to see where they went.
You skipped the blah blah. Yeah, you skipped the blah blah.
But you watch what you want, But it's a lot of fun content. I really enjoyed seeing it and hearing his commentary and that sort of thing. There, I really had a lot of fun, and that was something I look forward to every morning of his trip. Now, one thing I will say real quick is if you go to one of these sanctuaries and you want to feed the kangaroos and all that sort of stuff, go in the morning. Because if you go on we took Amanda to one, and it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they weren't hungry. Like, we bought the little bag of food and we ended up dumping it on the ground and just like, well, they'll eat it later on because none of them wanted it. But if you go early in the morning before every other tourist and their brother's been there, it's a really fun experience to be able to feed the kangaroos and that sort of thing there. But yeah, just don't show up there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because
No,
it's
they
going to
just
be
look at it and they go, that's what some of these ones that we were there, we realized because it was the afternoon and they
yeah,
were too busy laying in the sun going, I don't want to eat that. But they gave us the pellets in a nice cream cone. And
yeah.
one of the little guys, I think he was an albino
Oh,
kangaroo.
cool.
He didn't want the pellets. He wanted the cone. He was eating
Oh,
that away. So I thought, fine. But anyways,
hey, whatever works. Yeah.
yep.
So there you go. All right. So I've missed a lot of I've been reading the chat, but I know I've probably missed questions. But thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out with us this
Yeah.
morning. We have a lot of our friends that have lives this morning. I'd like to run through these real quick before we go. Donnell will be live at 10, I believe. So I'll throw her link in real quick. At 11, we'll have, I think, Tammy. and then Russ. So I'll throw them both in as well. Because I know Russ said I hadn't seen Russ this morning, which was weird. And then this afternoon we will have Mum and Pop at 1 and Katie at 4 or 4:30. Just throwing all the links in. And then our friend Stephanie, you're going live again this afternoon with Stephanie, right?
Yes, Stephanie and I are going to talk about something special.
Oh, nice.
That's all I can tell you. Because if I say any more, Stephanie will slap me.
Yeah, we don't want Stephanie slapping you. She'll have to have a very long arm to reach you from Ohio, but it's only like
she'll make it reach.
well, it's only 4 or 5 hours away, and she has a passport, from what I understand. So
Yeah,
I mean,
does.
you make her mad enough, you might have her on the doorstep.
I have a doorstep, slap, slap. Yep.
So there you go. But yeah, definitely check out all of my friends' lives this afternoon. If you want some quilty goodness or someone in the background, it's always good to support them as well. So if I missed anybody, let me know. But I think I've got everybody as well. I'm glad you all enjoyed the conversation. I'm seeing comments that everybody enjoyed it, which is really cool. Thank you once again, Stephen, for hanging out with us. If you're watching the replay, let us know that you were watching the replay and let us know, like, I don't know. Let's come up with a question. Let's say what's something that you'd like to see in Australia if you ever had a chance to go. And if you are in Australia watching this, let us know what your favorite thing about Australia as well. I think that'd be really fun. But with that, we will go ahead and say good morning or good evening wherever you are. Thank you again, Stephen. You have any last words before I just cut you off?
Nope. Just check out all my videos next week when they come out. And of course, we have Stephen and Walter live on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. And we'll try to move away from discussing Australia. Okay. We did that last week. I don't know what we're going to talk about this week, but we'll find something. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, I just want to say, Misty, thank you for coming. She says it's first time watching, had a great time. Well, thank you for hanging out with us. We do. I have my lives pretty much every Saturday morning. So yeah, I bring on a guest each week, and yeah, sometimes we sew, sometimes we just, today was more, I figured Stephen was going to come on and talk about his trip to Australia. That's kind of what we had planned, and it was really fun to hear your viewpoints on that as well. So, Heidi says he's with Stephen. I'll be scratching all the fruffly critters in Australia or wherever. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you ever get a chance to go down there and pet the kangaroos, pet the koala. The koalas are fun to pet. They really have you pet the koalas?
I have. That was not on this trip. On the trip before. Yeah, there's a picture of me with this koala and giving him a little scritchy as well.
Yeah,
mean, but
I'd rather pet them. Like I've held them and I've pet them, and if I'm given a choice, and in Queensland you're not given a choice, you have to pet them. They don't. No, sorry, New South Wales. I'll get it right. You're not allowed to hold them. And I think I prefer petting them anyway because it's easier on the animal, and you're not getting they got sharp claws. They climb trees for crying out loud.
Oh yeah.
So if you're given a choice, just pet them. Trust me on that one there as well. So with that, thank you all for hanging out. This was our Southern goodbye. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. Go over and check out Stephen's videos. It's always a lot of fun. There's something there for everyone. He has a lot of different things, and it's always a lot of fun. If you don't like one of his things, you got to find something that shit you do like. I really do believe that. So with that, I hope you all have a great day. Happy sewing, and we will see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. All right, we should be off.